The screams echoed through the metal corridors of the Galactic Council's maximum security facility on Kepler 442b. Guard Captain Zixith pressed his six-fingered hands against his elongated skull, trying to block out the sound that had been haunting the station for 3 standard cycles. The creature they called the Warbeast had killed 12 guards, 3 scientists, and 1 unfortunate janitor who had taken a wrong turn during his night shift. "Status report," Zixith commanded as he entered the observation deck overlooking the containment chamber. The massive transparent aluminum walls were scratched and dented from the inside, spiderweb cracks spreading across the surface like frozen lightning. Dr. Veltar, the station's chief xenobiologist, didn't look up from her holographic displays. Her blue-scaled skin had turned pale gray with stress, and her normally perfect researcher's posture had crumpled into exhausted defeat. The creature shows no signs of fatigue. Neural scans indicate heightened aggression patterns that have actually increased over the past rotation. Whatever planet this thing came from, evolution designed it for one purpose only. And that purpose is war. Pure, unfiltered destruction. The Warbeast had been discovered on a dead world in the Outer Rim, the sole survivor of what appeared to be a planetary genocide. The survey team found it feeding on the remains of an entire civilization, surrounded by the bones of creatures that had once ruled their world. Standing nearly 4 meters tall on its hind legs, the beast resembled a nightmarish fusion of reptile and mammal. Its hide was thick as starship armor, colored deep black with veins of angry red that pulsed with its heartbeat. 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows gave it perfect spatial awareness, while retractable claws could slice through durasteel like paper. Most terrifying were its teeth, rows upon rows of serrated bone designed to tear through any known material. The beast's jaw could unhinge like an ancient earth snake, allowing it to swallow prey whole or simply bite clean through a humanoid torso. Its tail ended in a cluster of bone spikes that could be fired like projectiles, each one capable of punching through combat armor at 50 meters. "The Council wants answers," Zixith said, watching the creature pace endlessly in its cell. The Warbeast never slept, never rested, never showed any behavior except constant movement and periodic violent outbursts. "They're considering termination." "We can't learn anything if it's dead," Dr. Veltar protested. "This creature represents an entirely new classification of apex predator. The scientific value alone. The scientific value means nothing if it escapes and reaches a populated world." Zixith pulled up the damage reports on his wrist display. "Look at these numbers. In 3 days, it's caused more destruction than most natural disasters. And we haven't even let it out of the cell." The creature suddenly stopped pacing and looked directly at them through the observation window. Its 6 eyes locked onto Zixith with an intelligence that sent ice through the captain's veins. The beast opened its mouth slightly, revealing those terrible teeth, and made a sound somewhere between a growl and mechanical grinding. "It knows we're talking about it," Dr. Veltar whispered. Before Zixith could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red warning lights bathed the corridors in bloody illumination as the automated voice announced, "Code 7, unauthorized vessel detected. All personnel to battle stations." The captain's communicator crackled to life. "Sir, we have a problem. A human ship just dropped out of hyperspace. They're not responding to our warnings, and they're on a direct approach vector." "Humans?" Zixith felt his stomach drop. Of all the species in the galaxy, humans were perhaps the most unpredictable. They had joined the Galactic Council only 50 standard years ago, but in that short time had developed a reputation for doing impossible things through sheer stubborn determination. They were also notorious for ignoring regulations when they believed something more important was at stake. "What class vessel?" he asked. "That's the strange part, sir. Scans show it's a civilian transport. Small crew, maybe 5 or 6 individuals, but they're broadcasting Council authorization codes that check out." Dr. Veltar looked up from her instruments with confusion written across her features. "Authorization codes? For what?" The answer came through the communications array moments later. A human voice, calm and professional, filled the observation deck. "Kepler Station, this is Dr. Sarah Chen aboard the research vessel Curiosity. We're responding to your request for xenopsychology consultation regarding the creature in your custody." "We made no such request," Zixith transmitted back. "Check your files again, Captain. The request was filed 48 hours ago through proper Council channels. We specialize in aggressive xenofauna behavioral modification." Dr. Veltar's fingers flew across her console, pulling up administrative records. Her expression shifted from confusion to surprise. "Captain, there is a requisition here. Filed by me? But I don't remember." "You filed it during the third incident," the human voice continued as if reading their conversation. "When the creature killed Dr. Morthen, you were quite specific about needing specialists in impossible cases." Zixith felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. Either the humans had incredible intelligence networks, or they possessed abilities that the Council had seriously underestimated. Both possibilities worried him. "Permission to dock denied," he transmitted. "This facility is under maximum security lockdown." "Captain, with respect, I've been studying the reports your station filed with the Council. This creature has stumped every expert you've brought in. 3 separate xenobiologists, 2 military strategists, and a team of neural specialists. All failures. What exactly do you have to lose by letting us try?" The Warbeast suddenly slammed against the containment wall, producing a thunderous boom that shook the entire observation deck. Cracks spread further across the transparent aluminum, and warning indicators began flashing on every console. "Structural integrity at 67%, the station's computer announced calmly. Dr. Veltar grabbed Zixith's arm. "Captain, at this rate the containment will fail within 2 rotations. If there's even a small chance these humans know something we don't." Through the communication array they could hear voices in the background of the human ship. A woman was speaking to someone else too quietly to make out words, but there was something different about the second voice. "Younger. Much younger, Dr. Chen," Zixith transmitted after a long moment. "If we allow you to dock, what exactly are you proposing to do?" "Something that's never been tried before, Captain. Something that might just work because it's completely insane." The Warbeast hit the wall again, and this time the lights flickered throughout the station. The docking bay filled with the hiss of equalizing atmospheric pressure as the human vessel Curiosity settled onto the landing platform. Captain Zixith stood behind a protective barrier with a full squad of armed guards, their weapons trained on the ship's airlock. He had agreed to this meeting against every instinct screaming in his head, but the alternative was watching the Warbeast break free and slaughter everyone on the station. The airlock opened with a soft pneumatic whisper, and Dr. Sarah Chen stepped onto the deck. She was tall for a human, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and intelligent brown eyes that immediately began cataloging everything around her. She wore a simple gray jumpsuit with the insignia of the Human Xenopsychology Institute and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had faced dangerous creatures before. "Captain Zixith, I presume?" She extended her hand in the human greeting gesture. "Thank you for agreeing to see us." "Us?" Zixith looked past her toward the ship but saw no one else emerging. "My daughter is still aboard. She's reviewing the case files you transmitted." Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. "I should mention that this is a family operation. My husband was the leading expert in xenofauna behavioral psychology. Before his death 3 years ago, Maya and I have continued his work." "Your daughter is a researcher?" "Not exactly." Dr. Chen glanced back toward her ship. "She's 12 years old." The silence that followed was broken only by the distant rumble of the Warbeast's latest assault on its containment cell. Every alien face in the docking bay displayed the universal expression of disbelief, regardless of species. "You brought a child," Zixith said slowly, "to a maximum security facility housing the most dangerous creature in Council space. Captain, before you make any judgments, let me explain something about humans that your files might not have covered." Dr. Chen pulled out a small hollow projector and activated it, displaying images of various Earth animals. "On our homeworld, we domesticated wolves. Creatures that were apex predators, pack hunters designed by evolution to kill. We turned them into companions that would die to protect us. The domestication process took thousands of years. For our ancestors, yes. But we've learned much since then. The key isn't time, Captain. It's understanding what drives a creature's behavior at the most fundamental level." The hologram shifted to show brain scans and neural pathway maps. Every predator, no matter how evolved, still carries basic recognition patterns. Dominance, submission, pack hierarchy, protective instincts. Dr. Veltar stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "You're suggesting this creature can be domesticated?" "I'm suggesting something more radical than that." Dr. Chen smiled, and for a moment her expression reminded Zixith of the look humans got right before they did something completely insane. I'm suggesting it already has been. Before anyone could ask what she meant, footsteps echoed from the ship's ramp. A small figure emerged from the Curiosity, and Zixith felt his breath catch. The human child was tiny, barely reaching his waist, with the same dark hair as her mother but tied in 2 short braids. She wore a simple blue dress and carried a stuffed animal that looked like some sort of earth mammal. "Maya, come meet Captain Zixith," Dr. Chen called. The child approached without fear, looking up at the alien captain with curious eyes. "Hello," she said politely. "Mommy says you have a sick animal that needs help." "Sick?" Dr. Veltar stepped closer, her scanner already active. "The creature shows no signs of illness. All biological functions are optimal." Maya tilted her head, considering this. "Not sick in the body, sick in the heart. That's what makes animals mean usually. They're scared or hurt or lonely." "Child," Zixith said gently. "This creature has killed 15 beings. It's not lonely. It's a weapon. That's what everyone said about Rex, too." Maya held up her stuffed animal, but Daddy found out Rex was just scared because his family was gone. Sometimes the meanest animals are the saddest inside. Dr. Chen placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Maya has a gift, Captain. Something we don't fully understand yet. She can sense emotional states in creatures that other methods can't detect. It's not telepathy exactly, but she picks up on patterns that even our best instruments miss." Another thunderous impact shook the station, followed by the screech of tearing metal. Warning lights began flashing more urgently throughout the docking bay. "Containment at 59%, the station computer announced. "If you're going to try something," Zixith said, "it needs to be now." Dr. Chen nodded. "We'll need access to the observation deck first. Maya needs to see the creature before we proceed." The journey through the station's corridors was tense, with guards flanking the small group at every step. Other personnel they passed stopped to stare at the human child, unable to comprehend why anyone would bring something so fragile into such a dangerous situation. Maya seemed completely unbothered by the attention, occasionally asking questions about the station's architecture or the various alien species they encountered. When they reached the observation deck, the Warbeast was in the middle of another rage episode. It had torn several support beams from the cell walls and was using them as clubs, systematically destroying everything within reach. Its 6 eyes blazed with fury, and the red veins across its hide pulsed like lava. "Readings indicate stress hormones at critical levels," Dr. Veltar reported. "Aggression markers are completely off the scale. Captain, I've never seen neurochemical patterns like this." Maya walked to the observation window and pressed her small hands against the transparent aluminum. The Warbeast immediately stopped its destruction and swiveled all 6 eyes toward her. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, child and monster stared at each other across the barrier. "Oh," Maya whispered, and her voice carried a note of infinite sadness. "Oh, you poor baby." The Warbeast dropped the metal beam it had been holding. Its mouth opened slightly, releasing a sound unlike anything they had heard before. Not a roar or growl, but something that might have been a whimper if produced by a creature 100 times smaller. "Maya," Dr. Chen stepped closer to her daughter. "What do you see?" The child turned away from the window, and there were tears streaming down her face. "He's not mean, Mommy. He's not mean at all. He's just the loneliest thing in the whole universe." Behind her, the Warbeast sat down heavily on the cell floor and continued making that heartbreaking sound. For the first time since its capture, it wasn't trying to destroy anything. It was simply sitting there, looking at the small human child as if she were the most important thing in existence. "How is this possible?" Dr. Veltar breathed, her instruments registering biochemical changes in the creature that shouldn't have been occurring. "Because," Maya said, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, "nobody ever asked him what was wrong. They just saw the scary outside and decided he was bad. But he's not bad. He's just waiting." "Waiting for what?" Maya looked back at the creature, which had moved closer to the window and was now sitting perfectly still, all 6 eyes focused on her with an intensity that was no longer threatening but somehow hopeful. "Waiting for someone to understand," she said simply. The emergency council meeting was held in the station's main conference room, with Captain Zixith presiding over a collection of the most stressed beings he had ever seen assembled in one place. Dr. Veltar had been running continuous scans for the past 6 hours, trying to understand the biochemical changes occurring in the Warbeast. Station Security Chief Colrith kept checking his weapon systems every few minutes, convinced that this was all an elaborate trap. and Dr. Chen sat calmly at the table while her 12-year-old daughter drew pictures with colored pencils she had retrieved from their ship. "Let me understand this correctly," Station Commander Thexal said, his purple tentacles writhing with agitation. "You're proposing that we allow a human child to enter the containment cell with the most dangerous predator in known space." "Not immediately," Dr. Chen replied. "Maya needs to establish communication protocols first. What happened in the observation deck was just the beginning." "Communication?" Dr. Veltar looked up from her data tablets. "The creature shows no signs of higher intelligence. Neural scans indicate a brain structure optimized for hunting and killing, with minimal cognitive processing centers." Maya looked up from her drawing without stopping her coloring. "That's because you're looking in the wrong place. His smart parts aren't where yours are." The room fell silent. Dr. Veltar leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "What do you mean, child?" "Most animals think with their whole body, not just their head. Like how fish know which way to swim in big groups or how birds know when to fly south. He thinks with his heart and his skin and his bones." Maya selected a red pencil and began adding details to her drawing. "The machines can't see that kind of thinking." Security Chief Kulreth's secondary arms crossed over his primary ones in a gesture of deep skepticism. "Even if that were true, the creature has shown nothing but hostility toward every being that has approached it. Because nobody tried to talk to him properly." Maya held up her drawing, which showed a large black creature sitting peacefully next to a small human figure. Around them she had drawn what looked like flowers and butterflies. "He's been trying to tell you things, but you don't speak his language." Commander Thexal's tentacles stopped writhing as he studied the child's artwork. "What has he been trying to tell us?" "That he's the last one. That his family is all gone. That he's been alone for so long he forgot how to be anything except scared and angry." Maya set down her pencil and looked around the table at all the adult faces. "He doesn't want to hurt anybody. He just doesn't know how to stop hurting." Dr. Chen pulled up a holographic display showing brain scans from the past few hours. "Maya's observations align with some interesting data we've collected. Since their interaction, the creature's neurochemical patterns have shown significant changes. Stress hormones have decreased by 30%, and we're seeing activity in brain regions that were previously dormant." "Impossible," Dr. Veltar protested. "Those regions showed no electrical activity during any of our previous examinations." "Because you never gave him a reason to use them?" Maya picked up a blue pencil and began adding sky to her picture. "Animals only show you their smart parts when they trust you. Otherwise, they just show you their scared parts." Captain Zixith had been quiet throughout the discussion, but now he spoke up. "Dr. Chen, what exactly are you proposing? I cannot authorize putting a child in danger, regardless of her apparent abilities. We start small. Controlled interactions through the barrier. Maya can begin establishing emotional contact while we monitor everything." Dr. Chen brought up another set of data displays. "Based on what we observed today, I believe this creature is suffering from what humans would call severe psychological trauma. It's not inherently aggressive. It's responding to isolation and terror. That's a very large assumption to base on a few minutes of observation," Commander Thexal pointed out. Maya looked up from her drawing again. "Do you want me to prove it?" The adults exchanged glances. "What do you mean?" Dr. Veltar asked. "I can show you he's not mean. Right now." "From here." Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "He's listening. He knows I'm talking about him." As if summoned by her words, the creature's voice echoed through the station's communication system. Not the roars and snarls they had grown accustomed to, but something different. A low rhythmic sound that rose and fell like a song. "How is that possible?" Security Chief Kulreth's hands moved instinctively toward his weapons. "The creature has no access to our communication networks." Dr. Veltar was frantically checking her instruments. "The vocalizations are coming from the containment cell, but they're resonating through the station's structural supports. The creature is using the metal framework like a resonance chamber." The song continued, and gradually everyone in the room began to realize that there was a pattern to it. A rhythm and melody that conveyed meaning beyond words. It spoke of emptiness and longing, of memories of others like itself, of a profound loneliness that seemed to stretch across infinite space. Maya opened her eyes, and there were tears on her cheeks again. "Do you hear him now? He's singing about his people. About the place where he used to live before the bad things happened." The song began to change, becoming softer, more hopeful. The deep, resonant notes that had spoken of loss were joined by higher tones that somehow conveyed the joy of finding something precious that had been lost. "He's happy," Maya whispered. "He's happy because he's not alone anymore." Commander Thexal's tentacles had gone completely still. In all his years of service, he had never heard anything quite like the sound filling the station. "This changes everything we thought we knew about the creature. It changes everything we thought we knew about intelligence itself," Dr. Veltar added, her fingers flying over her instruments as she tried to record and analyze the vocalizations. "The complexity of these patterns suggests cognitive abilities far beyond what our neural scans indicated." Captain Zixith stood and walked to the conference room's viewport, looking out at the stars. "Dr. Chen, if your daughter can truly communicate with this being, what do you believe it wants?" Maya answered before her mother could speak. "He wants to go home. But his home isn't there anymore, so he wants to find a new home where someone will want him to stay." The song from the containment cell gradually faded to silence, leaving the conference room filled with the quiet hum of station systems and the sound of beings trying to process something that challenged everything. They thought they understood about the nature of consciousness and communication. "There's something else," Maya added quietly. "He's not the only one. There are others like him, scattered across the galaxy. They're all alone too, all scared and angry because they don't understand what happened to their world. If we can help him, maybe we can help them too." Security Chief Kulreth finally spoke, his voice subdued. "How many others?" Maya closed her eyes again, concentrating. "Lots, maybe hundreds. They're all calling for each other, but they don't know how to find each other. That's why he's been so loud. He's been trying to call them home." Commander Thexal sank into his chair, the weight of this revelation settling over the room like a heavy blanket. They weren't dealing with a single dangerous predator. They were dealing with the scattered survivors of an entire species, traumatized and lost, crying out across space for their lost families. The preparation took 12 hours. Dr. Chen insisted on reviewing every safety protocol, backup plan, and emergency procedure 3 times over. Captain Zixith had positioned armed security teams at every access point to the containment level, while Dr. Veltar monitored the creature's vital signs and behavioral patterns from a dozen different sensor arrays. Maya sat on a bench outside the containment cell, still drawing pictures and humming softly to herself. She had been humming the same melody for the past hour, and everyone had gradually realized it was the song the Warbeast had sung during the council meeting. Somehow she had memorized the complex pattern of tones and was reproducing it perfectly. "Final system check," Captain Zixith announced through the communication array. "All stations report ready status. Medical team standing by," came the response from Dr. Talvek in the infirmary. "Security teams in position," Security Chief Kulreth confirmed. "Monitoring systems at full operational capacity," Dr. Veltar added. "Creature appears calm but alert. Neural activity suggests heightened awareness but no aggressive indicators." Dr. Chen knelt beside her daughter. "Maya, are you sure about this? We can take more time if you need it." Maya looked up from her latest drawing, which showed the Warbeast sitting peacefully while surrounded by tiny figures of various alien species. "He's ready, Mommy. He's been ready since yesterday. He's just been waiting for permission." The containment cell had been modified with additional safety measures. The transparent aluminum barrier could be dropped instantly if anything went wrong, and emergency force fields could be activated to create multiple separation barriers within seconds. Despite these precautions, everyone in the observation deck felt their hearts racing as the outer airlock cycled open. Maya walked through the entry corridor as if she were entering a friend's house. She carried her stuffed animal in one hand and a small bag containing art supplies in the other. The inner door opened with a soft hiss and she stepped into the containment cell. The Warbeast sat in the center of the space exactly as it had been positioned for the past day. Its 6 eyes tracked Maya's movement, but it made no effort to approach or retreat. The creature was massive up close, easily 3 times Maya's height even while sitting. Its claws, each longer than her forearm, rested gently on the floor. The terrible teeth that had haunted the nightmares of station personnel were hidden behind closed lips. "Hello?" Maya said simply, settling cross-legged on the floor about 3 meters away from the creature. "My name is Maya. What's your name?" The Warbeast tilted its head, a gesture that looked almost puppy-like despite its intimidating size. It made a soft sound, barely audible through the monitoring systems. "Oh, that's a pretty name," Maya said, as if she had understood perfectly. "It sounds like music. Can you say it again?" The creature repeated the sound, a complex series of low-frequency tones that resonated through the metal floor. Maya listened intently, then attempted to reproduce it. Her human vocal cords couldn't match the depth or complexity, but she managed something that approximated the pattern. The Warbeast's reaction was immediate and profound. It leaned forward, eyes widening, and made the sound again, this time louder and more clearly defined. Maya tried again, getting closer to the original. Back and forth they went, creature and child working together to bridge the gap between their completely different forms of communication. "Incredible," Dr. Veltar whispered from the observation deck. "She's learning its language in real time." "Not learning," Dr. Chen corrected quietly. "Teaching. She's teaching it how to communicate with us." After several minutes of this vocal exchange, Maya opened her bag and pulled out her art supplies. She began drawing on a piece of paper, her movements quick and confident. The Warbeast watched with fascination, moving slightly closer to get a better view. Maya didn't acknowledge the movement, continuing to draw as if having a giant predator lean over her shoulder was the most natural thing in the world. When she finished the picture, she held it up for the creature to see. It showed the Warbeast surrounded by others of its kind, standing beneath a purple sky with twin suns. The creature made a sound that might have been recognition or surprise, then carefully extended one massive clawed hand toward the paper. Maya stood and walked closer, offering the drawing. The Warbeast took it with incredible delicacy, holding the fragile paper between two claws as if it were made of spun glass. It examined the image closely, then looked back at Maya with an expression that somehow conveyed both gratitude and profound sadness. "I know," Maya said softly. "I know you miss them. But look." She pulled out another drawing, this one showing the Warbeast standing with various aliens, including small figures that were clearly meant to represent humans. "You can have a new family now. We want to be your friends." The creature set down the first drawing carefully and reached for the second one. As it did, its massive form shifted, and one of its feet moved closer to Maya. She reached out without hesitation and placed her tiny hand against the creature's scaled hide. The moment their skin made contact, every monitoring system in the observation deck went wild. Energy readings spiked. Neural activity patterns exploded across the displays, and several sensors actually overloaded from the intensity of the readings. "What's happening?" Captain Zixith demanded. Dr. Veltar stared at her instruments in amazement. "I'm reading massive neural activity from both of them. It's like their nervous systems are synchronizing somehow." In the containment cell, Maya's eyes had gone wide with wonder. The Warbeast had gone completely still, all 6 eyes focused on the small hand pressed against its side. Slowly, carefully, it lowered its head until it was level with Maya's face. "Oh," Maya breathed. "Oh, I can feel what you feel." The creature made a sound unlike anything they had heard before. Not a roar or a song, but something that might have been a purr if produced by an animal the size of a small building. It was a sound of contentment, of recognition of a loneliness finally beginning to heal. Maya stepped closer and wrapped her arms around the creature's massive neck in a hug. The Warbeast remained perfectly still, as if afraid that any movement might break the fragile moment of connection. "He has a name," Maya announced to the observation deck, her voice carrying clearly through the monitoring systems. "His name is Kethvar. It means heartsong in his language, and he's not dangerous anymore." To prove her point, she pulled back from the hug and looked directly into the creature's 6 eyes. "Kethvar," she said clearly. "Sit." The massive predator, the creature that had terrorized an entire space station and defied every attempt at control, immediately lowered its haunches to the floor in a perfect sitting position. The silence in the observation deck was deafening. "How?" Dr. Veltar whispered. Maya turned toward the observation window with a smile brighter than the station's emergency lighting. "Because I asked nicely," she said, "and because he wants to be good. He just needed someone to show him how." Kethvar made another purring sound and gently nuzzled Maya's shoulder with his massive head. For the first time since his capture, the creature looked peaceful. The angry red veins that had pulsed across his hide had faded to a soft pink, and his 6 eyes held an expression of calm alertness rather than rage. "The neural readings have stabilized," Dr. Veltar reported, her voice filled with awe. Stress hormones have dropped to baseline levels. All aggression markers have disappeared completely. Captain Zixith activated the communication array. Maya, can you ask him? Ask Kethvar. If he understands where he is? If he knows we want to help him? Maya looked up at the creature and made a series of the low-frequency sounds they had been practicing. Kethvar responded with a complex melody that rose and fell like a river flowing over stones. He says thank you, Maya translated. He says he understands now that you were scared of him because he was acting scared and angry. He's sorry for hurting people. He didn't know how to tell you he was just lonely. The creature looked directly at the observation window and lowered his head in what could only be interpreted as a bow of apology. And he wants to know, Maya continued, if he can help you find the others. The ones like him who are still lost and afraid. He knows where some of them are, and he thinks maybe they'll listen to him now that he remembers how to be calm. The Galactic Council emergency session was unlike anything in the organization's 300-year history. Representatives from 47 different species filled the Great Chamber on Coruscant Prime, while the central holographic display showed live feed from Kepler Station. In the center of that feed, a 12-year-old human child sat reading a book while leaning against a creature that every military strategist in the galaxy had classified as an extinction-level threat. Council members, High Chancellor Morden announced, his forearms spread wide in the traditional gesture of momentous proclamation, we are here to address the most significant development in interspecies relations since the founding of our alliance. Kethvar lay on his side in the modified containment area, which no longer resembled a prison cell. Maya had insisted on decorating it with drawings and colorful fabrics, turning the sterile space into something that looked more like a child's bedroom than a maximum security facility. The massive creature's breathing was slow and peaceful as Maya read aloud from what appeared to be a children's story about friendship. The creature remains docile? Asked Representative Kelthor of the Andorian Defense Force. More than docile, Captain Zixith replied via holographic projection. Kethvar has become an active participant in station operations. He's helped us repair structural damage he caused during his initial captivity, and he's provided information about 7 other creatures of his species currently being held at various council facilities. Dr. Chen stepped forward to address the assembly. Council members, what we've discovered challenges our fundamental understanding of intelligence and consciousness. These beings aren't monsters or weapons. They're refugees from a planetary catastrophe, suffering from severe psychological trauma that manifested as violent behavior. The display shifted to show star charts with marked locations across the galaxy. Based on information provided by Kethvar through Maya's translation, we've identified 17 separate incidents over the past 5 years where creatures matching his species were captured or killed. Each time they were found alone on dead worlds, exhibiting extreme aggression toward any contact. And you're suggesting that this aggression was not their natural state? Representative Vexali of the Rigel Commerce Guild sounded skeptical. Maya looked up from her book and spoke directly to the assembly, her young voice carrying clearly through the chamber. They're like lost puppies, but really big and scared. When puppies get lost, sometimes they bite because they don't know who to trust. But if you're patient and kind, they remember how to be good. A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through the assembled representatives. The sight of a human child explaining complex xenopsychology to the galaxy's most powerful political body was surreal enough to break through even the most formal diplomatic protocols. High Chancellor, Morden leaned forward in his chair. Child, are you saying that all of these creatures can be pacified? In the same manner? Not pacified, Maya corrected firmly. Helped. They don't need to be made quiet. They need to be made happy. And they need to find each other again, because being alone is what made them sick in the first place. Dr. Veltar joined the holographic conference, her excitement evident despite her attempts at scientific objectivity. We've established communication protocols with 3 additional specimens held at other facilities. The results are consistent. Once the creatures understand that they're safe and that we're trying to help reunite them with others of their kind, their aggressive behavior cease completely. Furthermore, Dr. Chen added, Kethvar has demonstrated remarkable intelligence and problem-solving abilities. He's been working with our engineering teams to develop communication methods that don't require Maya as a translator. Within a few weeks, we should have basic translation protocols that any council facility can use. Representative Thexnor of the Military Strategic Command raised a crystalline appendage. What about the creatures that were eliminated? Before this discovery, the chamber fell silent. Maya's expression grew sad, and Kethvar lifted his massive head to nuzzle her gently with his snout. 7 confirmed deaths, Captain Zixith reported quietly. 3 more missing and presumed dead. Kethvar has provided the locations of their homeworlds for proper memorial ceremonies according to their species' customs. The cultural implications alone are staggering, Dr. Chen continued. We're not just dealing with the rescue and rehabilitation of individual beings. We're potentially preserving an entire species from extinction. The knowledge they possess about their homeworld, their technology, their art and music, all of it was presumed lost. Maya stood up and walked to where Kethvar's head rested on the floor. She placed her small hand between his eyes, and the creature made a soft, harmonious sound. He wants to sing for you, she announced. He wants to share the memory songs of his people so you can understand who they really are. Without waiting for permission, Maya began to hum. Kethvar joined her, his deep voice harmonizing with her higher tones. Gradually, other sounds joined the melody, not just vocalizations but rhythmic tapping and what sounded like wind instruments. The other creatures, scattered across multiple facilities, had somehow joined the song across impossible distances. The music that filled the council chamber was unlike anything the assembled representatives had ever heard. It spoke of civilizations that rose and fell like tides, of beings who had once traveled between stars before their worlds were consumed by cosmic catastrophe. It told of loss and hope, of memory and dreams, of a species that had survived the death of everything they had ever known, and now sought only to find each other again in the vast darkness. When the song ended, the silence in the chamber was profound. Many of the representatives were openly weeping, their emotional responses transcending species barriers. High Chancellor Morden was the first to speak, his voice thick with emotion. Dr. Chen, what do you need from the Council to continue this work? Resources for search and rescue operations to locate the remaining survivors. Medical and psychological support teams trained in the new communication protocols. And most importantly, suitable environments where they can be reunited and begin the process of rebuilding their society. And space, Maya added, looking directly at the Chancellor. They need lots of space to run and play and remember how to be happy. And they need to know that nobody's going to hurt them anymore just for being scared. Representative Korval of the Vulcan Science Directorate spoke for the first time during the session. This represents a fundamental shift in our approach to first contact protocols. We have been operating under the assumption that aggressive behavior indicates hostile intent. The human child has demonstrated that our assumptions were dangerously flawed, Representative Kelthor admitted. How many other species have we mischaracterized due to our failure to understand their emotional states? Dr. Chen nodded gravely. That's exactly what we need to address. Maya's abilities are unusual, but the underlying principles can be taught. Empathy and patience aren't species-specific traits. We can develop better protocols for understanding distressed or traumatized beings. High Chancellor Mordoon stood, his forearms extended in the formal gesture of binding council decision. By unanimous consent of this emergency session, the Galactic Council hereby authorizes Operation Homecoming. Dr. Chen and her team will lead a full-scale effort to locate, rescue, and rehabilitate all surviving members of the Kethvari species. Furthermore, he continued, new protocols will be developed for first contact situations involving apparently hostile entities. The possibility of trauma-induced behavior will be considered before military action is authorized. Maya clapped her hands together in delight, and Kethvar responded with another harmonious sound that somehow conveyed joy across species barriers. Around the galaxy, in facilities where his kindred were held, answering songs began to rise. Thank you, Maya said to the assembled council. Kethvar wants you to know that his people have a saying. A song shared is a heart healed. He says that today, the whole galaxy learned how to sing together. The session concluded with the unprecedented sight of the Galactic Council's most powerful representatives joining in applause for a human child and her impossible friendship with a creature that had once been considered the galaxy's greatest threat. 1 year later, the new Kethvari sanctuary on Kepler 442c hummed with life that no one had dared to imagine possible. Where once there had been only empty grasslands and crystalline formations, now stood organic spires that sang in the wind and gardens that seemed to grow in mathematical patterns too, complex for most species to comprehend. Maya ran through the settlement carrying a collection of silver flowers she had picked for her friend's naming ceremony. At 14 now, she was taller but no less energetic, her hair braided with the small glowing beads that the Kethvari made from crystallized starlight. Behind her, Kethvar followed at an easy lope, his massive form moving with a grace that still amazed the human scientists who studied the growing community. Kethvar, wait up, Maya called over her shoulder. You're going too fast for the little ones. Behind them, a group of newly rescued Kethvari younglings attempted to keep pace with their adopted leader. These were the ones born in captivity or found orphaned on dead worlds, smaller than the adults but still towering over most humanoid species. They had learned to moderate their size and strength when playing with their human friend, though their excited chittering often made the ground vibrate. The naming ceremony was taking place in the Heart Grove, where the oldest of the rescued Kethvari had planted memory trees from seeds they had carried in specialized organs designed to preserve their species' genetic heritage across cosmic disasters. Each tree held the genetic patterns of plants from their lost homeworlds, creating a living museum of extinct ecosystems. Dr. Chen stood with the council delegation that had come to witness the ceremony. The past year had brought changes to her as well. She now wore the insignia of the newly created Interspecies Empathy Institute, and her hair showed silver threads from the stress and wonder of opening humanity's first permanent diplomatic post with a species that communicated primarily through emotion and song. The integration process has exceeded all projections, she was explaining to Council Representative Mortax. We've successfully reunited 43 survivors, including 6 juveniles who were found in various stages of psychological trauma. The community structure they've developed appears to be helping all of them recover. High above them, the adult Kethvari had arranged themselves in a great circle around the ceremony site. Their combined voices created a harmonic resonance that seemed to make the air itself shimmer with meaning. This was the song of recognition, Maya had explained to the fascinated xenolinguists, where the community formally acknowledged a new member's chosen identity. At the center of the circle stood the newest arrival. Found 3 months ago on a derelict ship drifting in the neutral zone, this Kethvari had been so traumatized that he hadn't responded to any contact until Maya had spent 6 weeks simply sitting with him and humming the friendship songs she had learned from Kethvar. What will his new name be? Asked Dr. Veltar, who had become the sanctuary's chief research coordinator. Maya grinned and placed her hand on Kethvar's side. The massive creature lowered his head so she could whisper to him, then raised his voice to join the ceremony song. The meaning flowed through the harmonic patterns like water finding its course. His name is Thekmaya, she announced to the assembled crowd. It means small heart teacher in their language, because he says I taught him that even the smallest heart can hold the biggest love. The newly named Thekmaya stepped forward and made the deep humming sound that served as acknowledgement. He was smaller than most of the other adults, his hide bearing scars from his time in captivity, but his 6 eyes shone with a peace that had seemed impossible when he first arrived. Captain Zixth, now serving as the sanctuary's official council liaison, shook his head in amazement. A year ago, I was convinced that creature would kill us all if given the chance. Now look at him. They all just needed someone to listen, Maya said simply, and someone to teach them that not everyone was going to hurt them. The ceremony continued with the traditional sharing of gifts. Each member of the community contributed something to welcome their new brother. Songs that held the memories of lost worlds, artistic creations made from crystallized emotions, and practical items for building his new home within the settlement. When it came time for Maya's gift, she approached Thekmaya carrying a small object wrapped in blue fabric. The massive being knelt to bring himself closer to her level, and she unwrapped a carved wooden figure no larger than her hand. It's you, she said, holding up the carving for him to see. I made it so you'll always remember that you're safe now, and that you have family who care about you. Thekmaya examined the tiny carving with wonder, then made a sound that needed no translation. Joy was joy in any language. The most remarkable aspect, Dr. Chen was saying to the council delegation, is how they've adapted human concepts of family and community while maintaining their own cultural identity. They've created something entirely new, a hybrid society that works for both species. Indeed, the sanctuary had become something unprecedented in galactic history. Human families had volunteered to live alongside the HFY, sharing resources and knowledge while learning from each other. Children of both species played together in the Crystal Gardens, while adults collaborated on projects that ranged from artistic endeavors to advanced scientific research. The HFY, it turned out, had technological knowledge that complemented human innovation in unexpected ways. Their understanding of harmonic resonance had led to breakthrough developments in faster-than-light communication, while human empathy and adaptability had helped them process their trauma and begin rebuilding their civilization. "What's next for the sanctuary?" Representative Mortax asked. Maya answered before any of the adults could speak. "We're going to find more of them. There are still HFY out there who are lost and scared, and some who don't even know that others survived. HFY says he can hear their songs sometimes when the space winds are just right. The long-term plan," Dr. Chen elaborated, "involves expanding the search and rescue operations to other sectors. We've also received requests from several worlds to establish similar sanctuaries for other species that may have been mischaracterized due to trauma responses." As the naming ceremony concluded, the HFY began their traditional evening song, a complex harmony that seemed to make the crystalline formations throughout the settlement resonate in sympathetic vibration. The human residents had learned to recognize this as the song of gratitude, a daily expression of appreciation for the new life they had found Maya settled against. HFY's side as the sun set over the sanctuary, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. The massive creature wrapped his tail gently around her, careful not to disturb the smaller children who had gathered to listen to the evening song. "Are you happy?" she asked quietly, placing her hand on his hide where she could feel the deep rumble of his contentment. HFY's response came not in words but in the form of a new melody, one that spoke of friendship, transcending the barriers between species, of hope restored after terrible loss, and of the profound truth that understanding was always possible when beings chose to see each other with compassion rather than fear. Around them, the sanctuary hummed with life and laughter and the sound of dreams being rebuilt from the ashes of tragedy. In the distance, the communication array picked up faint songs from across the galaxy, other survivors calling out to announce their locations, confident now that someone was listening and would come to bring them home. The Warbeast had obeyed no one, until a human child taught him that obedience was never what anyone needed. What they all needed was belonging, understanding, and the simple recognition that every being in the galaxy, no matter how frightening they might appear, carried within them the capacity for love and the hope for home, and in the growing twilight of a world that had become a bridge between species. That hope sang itself to sleep in harmonies that made the very stars seem to listen.